Welcome to the tutorial WebUX Testing Part 4, Working with Dynamic Web Content. While much of web content is static and does not change once a page is loaded, certain content, like slideshows, update while the user is viewing the same page. The eye-tracking behavior of users viewing such dynamic content can be recorded during an SMI WebUX experiment and fully analyzed in bGaze. In Experiment Suite, the process is referred to as background screen recording. In this tutorial, you'll learn how, in the design phase, to make sure that background screen recording is enabled. During the experiment phase, you'll see how dynamic content is automatically recorded. You'll also see how, in bGaze, you can display the tracked eye movements of dynamic content and perform both qualitative and quantitative analysis on the relevant experiment results. We'll start in Experiment Center. I have a previously defined experiment with a web stimulus open. When I select the web stimulus, I can examine the various properties. Make sure the background screen recording option is set to Yes. This is the default setting and necessary to analyze dynamic content in bGaze. Run the experiment as you would normally. Any dynamic content on the page, such as this slideshow ad, will be automatically recorded. Now we're ready to analyze our dynamic content in bGaze. Once the experiment is opened, let's take a look at the Gaze Replay view first. Initially, only the static content is available for review. To begin your analysis of dynamic content, select the Background Screen Recording option. The dynamic content is loaded from the recorded data and is soon available. Rather than predefined stimuli, bGaze uses custom trials to organize the recorded stimulus material in a personalized manner. This is especially useful when analyzing dynamic content. So I'll choose the Custom Trial Selector view to begin the process of identifying the content we want to analyze. Since the content is dynamic, we are essentially marking the time or interval that the content is on screen. Again, I'll enable background screen recording. The next step is to make sure that the participant you want to work with for this interval is selected. Each custom trial interval targets a single participant. However, as you'll see, a custom trial can have multiple intervals with the same or different participant. Now, let's create a new custom trial by clicking Add in the Custom Trials pane. Next, move the timeline cursor to a frame with the desired dynamic content. At this point, I'm simply moving the mouse, which in turn repositions the timeline cursor. I'll focus on the Kindle ad. When you locate where your dynamic content first appears, click and drag to define the interval that the desired dynamic content is on screen. Now let's take a look at our custom trial data through a scan path view. The stimulus is set to my custom trial, and my single participant is selected. When I play the timeline, I can review the gaze path for this particular dynamic content. I'll add another participant so we can compare data. With the same custom trial selected, I'll switch to a different participant, and in the timeline, I'll drag out the interval where the same Kindle ad appears. To fine-tune your selection, zoom in by choosing a shorter time period for the timeline, and then adjust the beginning and ending points of the custom trial interval. When we look at scan path now, the second participant has been added, and we can compare the two intervals. Within the custom trial, we can specify an area of interest by opening the AOI editor and drawing out a rectangle around the ad, and then giving the AOI a custom name. We can open additional data views, such as event statistics, and easily review the quantitative data. Not only can we include multiple participants in a custom trial, we can also identify multiple intervals for the same participant. Dynamic content, like slideshows, often repeatedly display the same content. Let's add another interval for a chosen participant. I'll move the cursor until the Kindle ad appears again, and then drag out a new interval. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to switch the settings to Original to capture the full duration. The scan path view has automatically updated, as you can see when I select the participant with the newly added interval. With the original option selected, this duration includes both defined intervals as well as the time between the intervals. To focus on just the intervals, return to the Custom Trial Selector view and choose the Skip Gaps option. Now, when we choose the participant in the scan path, the duration is shorter because the content is more targeted. Other features allow you to enhance your analysis of dynamic content. Right-click on the interval timeline indicators to adjust the start and end times numerically. Intervals can be removed by right-clicking on the relevant marker and choosing Delete. For enhanced data readability, right-click on the custom trial thumbnail and give it a distinctive name. As you can see, custom trials can also be deleted. Please note that this action will also remove any associated intervals as well. In this tutorial, you learned how to enable background screen recording for dynamic content in Experiment Center. You also saw how to create custom trials with distinct intervals for each participant and analyze the related data both qualitatively and quantitatively in bGaze. As demonstrated in this tutorial, SMI Experiment Suite makes it possible to record and analyze eye-tracking behavior for dynamic as well as static content.